transportation is a core function of the state. And I want to start by thanking Senator Newman and the fellow members of the Transportation Committee. I'd also like to thank the CA, David Larson. The staff did an excellent job. I will not propose any amendments to this bill, Senator Newman, out of respect for the work we've done. But I hope you don't mind if I make a few comments about what we think here and what I hope we'll be talking about this summer and as we go forward. First of all, members, I'm a no vote on this bill. I'm a no vote because of the money that it takes out of the general fund, $300 million in 2018, $447 million out of our general fund in 2019. As we've debated on this floor ways to make the budget work, ask yourselves what the general fund could be doing for Minnesotans if that money was back in there. We could be paying for schools and health care and health and human services. The states that have cut the general fund in our great country have found themselves in some trouble, including the deficits that they face, and we don't want to be in that. I'm not cheering for Minnesota to go into deficit in the next biennium. I'm cheering for us to continue to have the success we're having. But when we cut the general fund and put pressure on those sources, we start to take those risks. And I agree with Senator Dibble that that is the principal concern. Second, the Corridors of Commerce provision in line 3510 now prohibits the commissioner from considering any eligibility requirement that's not specified. That seems to me to raise the question whether Highway 14, on which so many of my friends and neighbors have been hurt and some killed, between Nicollet and One, will be built in my lifetime to a 4-lane highway. I'll be very sorry to see that change have that effect. Again, I will be cheering for Minnesota, but can't help but notice that change affects their criteria. As long as we're talking about safety, I hope members remember when we defeated the additional truck weights allowed on our highways right in this chamber and said that safety was a priority. Now the truck weights are back in this bill. I accepted the argument of Senator Goggin on dairy truck weights that it would be no more dangerous. I'm now wondering whether that'll be true, and I'm sure that with the construction materials, there will just be a question of time before there's a fatal accident involving a truck at this new allowed weight. When that happens, our friends on the State Patrol are going to do a report called an accident reconstruction, and the grieving family is going to see that report, and they're going to ask questions about how this happened. And we will ask ourselves, what dollar value do we put on safety? What is the value of a Minnesota person's health or life? Okay, so let's look ahead and hope for the best. Senator Newman, you must have seen this coming. I, too, hope that we'll be able to discuss a gas tax. My question for members this summer and in future sessions goes something like this. If a person from Minnesota drives in Pennsylvania and pays 52 cents a gallon, how is it that we ask a person from Pennsylvania driving here to pay 28? Why is that fair? Why can't we have people who come from out of state help us pay for our roads? If you are concerned about deficits, I think you'll be looking for revenue, and a gas tax has been supported, as I pointed out before, by more than a dozen states in this country just in 2015. An increase is a smart, sustainable, long-term way to provide revenue. I'm also struck by the number of groups in Minnesota that came forward and announced public support for an increase in the gas tax, including Minnesota corn growers, Minnesota soybean growers, Minnesota pork producers. Those groups represent all types of Minnesotans, and they're saying, state legislature, consider this way to raise revenue. Finally, I'd say our work is just beginning on transportation. Minnesota depends on all modes of transportation, roads, bridges, and transit. Let's pull together. Let's keep a bipartisan approach. Let's do a good job this year, next year, and all the future years. And then we'll be able to look back on it and say we did the very best we could for the state and the people. Thank you very much, Madam President.